Welcome to the Global Discussion, discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name's Simon Hodgkins, and today it's really a pleasure to be joined by Terry Thompson. Terry Thompson is well known. He's got a lot of content to talk about, and he's involved in lots of exciting things. But rather than me explain it, I'm going to hand straight over to you, Terry. Explain a little bit about who you are, your background to our worldwide audience. So over to you, Terry.
Simon, thank you so much, first and foremost, for the opportunity to have a discussion with you. Man, when you reached out to me, I was like, you know what? I love it. I love it when two podcasters, authors, entrepreneurs can reach out to each other and connect in a meaningful way. So first and foremost, I wanted to thank you for that. My name is Terry Thompson. I'm an author. I'm an entrepreneur. I have been a leader within multiple businesses over the last 30 years. I've led thousands of people to personal, professional success. I've written multiple books. My primary focus is on leadership, but I'm also a training developer as well too. So I write courses, I create training, I work with authors, I work with entrepreneurs around the world to help you sell more books, create courses, gain visibility across social media. I mean, so much to unpack here within all of this. So I've got all of my training, all my books, all my courses, every way you can connect with me. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but that's kind of me within a nutshell. I just love people, man. I really believe that connecting with people is where it's at right there. Simon, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Terry. And I would agree wholeheartedly. We are going to struggle massively to fit everything that you're involved in into this episode. And we might need to come back and talk again on other areas. But let's start, because you mentioned the word podcast. We're here on the show. But you have not one, not two, not three, but 4 shows going on. Could you just maybe unpack that a little bit for our audience?
Yeah, sure. So my main podcast is The Bottom Line Up Front, and that's where we dig into the bottom line up front, the most important thing that you can talk about or focus with. So I kind of talk about a powerful opinion, and we build the entire conversation around this one thing. I call it the bottom line up front. So that was the premise behind the Bottom Line Up Front podcast. I also have the Unbreakable Stories podcast, where we talk about stories, we share stories, because people have a story to share that can motivate, inspire, encourage, but more importantly, empower others through the power of stories, because it is through that story that builds a bridge between where people are struggling, their stresses, their anxieties, the roadblocks within life, and how they can achieve success. And it's those stories that we share that empowers others. If it's possible for you, it's possible for somebody else. And that's Unbreakable Stories podcast. I also have the Top Cyber Pro podcast, where I talk to top cyber professionals around the world, and we dive deep into some of the pressing issues within cybersecurity, things going on out in the internet, computers, IT, all these different things that's going on. So that's the Top Cyber Pro podcast. And then I have the Poputainment podcast, and that's bent around popular entertainment. So it's like a riff on 2 different words, popular and entertainment. So I created Poputainment, and I want to create the future of entertainment in multiple medias, to include a podcast, magazine. I've already got 1 published magazine, working on a 2nd one, and so much. I mean, I could dive into all kinds of things of what I've got my hands in, but those are the 4 main podcasts that I have right now.
Thank you, Terry. And for those people listening in audio, I'm just going to explain that on your T-shirt, it says Change Maker. And you are sort of helping people to make those changes. And you mentioned entrepreneurs, and I know you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. You focus on entrepreneurs a lot on some of your shows. But given your own career background and your own expertise, are there some sort of common points that you can help people with, or is there anything that you see time and time again that you could share with us here today?
Yeah, so there's 2 things. Number 1 is a lack of belief, and number 2 is a lack of action. You see, when you believe that you are capable of doing something, you can do anything, but it starts right there with the belief. Then it goes into 2 different things. It starts from a decision and then an action. When you first decide and then you take action, I always tell people you're going to get a result. Whether that result is big, small, positive, or negative, it is in fact a result, and results may vary. It's kind of an old adage, a mindset thing. Look, the thing is that you have within you anything that you want to do, everything that you want to do, and we have resources as well too. So I see people that are out there struggling, whether you're an author, whether you're an entrepreneur, business person, whatever label we want to put on things. I truly believe that it comes down to you deciding and acting. Man, there's a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah, and I know you do some training in this space, don't you, with people, with private training sessions and helping people, I suppose, to become that leader that they need to be. And you offer sort of that advice, inspiration, and examples there. But I think it nicely ties back to what you're saying initially with that. It's that personal engagement, isn't it? That personal content. And what type of people are you normally working with? Is it, because you mentioned cybersecurity, which is what prompted my question. Are there particular business niches, or is it literally wide and wonderful?
Well, when it comes, it's a variety. It really is. But in reference to cybersecurity, think about it. We're in a day and age to where computers are everywhere. Cyber is not going away, and the ability to secure that cyberspace, if you will, is not going away. Right now, there's a huge gap out there within the world of certifications and professionals. There's a lot of people that know stuff about IT. There's a lot of people that are very technologically savvy, but they just don't know the opportunities, and they don't know how to get into cyber. They don't know what certifications to start with. They don't know like how to submit their resume to get that job within the cyber industry. So when I talk to cyber experts, I really kind of want to hit on a variety of different things. Of course, right now, the biggest thing going on is AI. Artificial intelligence is the biggest, it's driving me nuts. It absolutely is, like, just to see this stuff just everywhere. But look, cybersecurity is so much more than simply AI. And I think that the more that we educate ourselves, the more that we train ourselves, the more readily available that this knowledge, the skills, the experience is available, we can bridge that gap, that shortage gap of cybersecurity professionals. I guarantee you the average person does not realize they're already a cybersecurity specialist. They just need to get into the business, into the field.
Well, you've mentioned the word AI on a podcast, and I wanted to, it's a nice link into something I wanted to ask you about, which it's a little bit AI related, but it's not going down the AI rabbit hole. And that, because I know, as well as cybersecurity, you help people, don't you, either become an author or you help them produce better content, to become a better content creator. So whether you're an entrepreneur setting up their first business, whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur, you've had a few successful exits, but we're all familiar with this content is king. People seem to be producing more content constantly. We're bombarded with messages. And I suppose my question in a roundabout sort of way is, in a world of AI, that just seems to have accelerated stuff. So what are you talking about when you explain to people about whether it's copywriting mastery or whether it's producing content that actually works? Are there any sort of key areas you could touch on there for us?
Yeah, sure. And that's put a human element to it. Artificial intelligence is exactly what it is. It's artificial. It is intelligence that is gathered across many references and resources in a way that basically can be distributed. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it makes absolute 100% sense to the people that are consuming that content. That's where the human element comes into play. Great. AI is a tool. That's all that I look at it as. It's a tool. It's a resource. And one of the things that I wrote about within one of my books, I called it, there was a segment. I'm actually rewriting another book called The Five Rights, but I wrote a book called Leadership Solved. And within that book, there was a little tiny section called The Five Rights. And that's be at the right place, at the right time, with the right information, the right resources, the right attitude, and the right action. Now, resources, AI is a resource. And I truly believe that in the right hands, it could be used for good, it can be used for bad, it can be used for indifferent, it could be used for whatever it is that the user chooses to use it with. And there's lots of different AI technologies that are out there. There's not just one. I mean, there's like one that's probably the biggest conversation, two that's probably the biggest conversation. But look, at the end of that, whether you use an AI as, to do all of your work, I look at it as a tool. It's a resource. Use it to get started, to generate ideas, and then put your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own actions, your own knowledge, your own skills, your own experience into it. It has to have that balance between artificial and human element in order to make sense.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. That makes sense. I think the human in the loop is still very much an important
Mhm.
part of that. And when it comes to the writing of books, you provide free books to people. You wrote some books, and you work with authors, don't you? And we have a lot of authors and people that want to get into the world of book writing that listen to this show. So what kind of work are you doing there specifically with authors?
So I've worked with a lot of nonfiction authors. Now there's different genres and types of authors that are out there, but look, I'll touch on two things, one on the fiction side, one on the nonfiction side. On the fiction side, think about it like this right here. Anything is possible. A romance book is a romance book is a romance book. It's one of those things like how many ways can you modify, tweak, or change a sex scene or a love scene or a fall in love story or whatever the case may be. But at the end of that, people get really creative with how they do things. Do not be afraid to let your creativity shine and come up with new ways in which you've met someone, you've fallen in love and do different things, because the same old boring stuff is just going to get bypassed. Another element to that is what is the lesson? What is the lesson? Like if you're just going to read a book and you're going to passively read that book just for the joy of reading the book, and there's a lot of people that do. I've done that. I've just opened up a book and read it for the pure enjoyment. But for me, I'm looking for a lesson. And if you can really talk about a lesson that can be learned within the book, I really believe that can create content way beyond the book that you ever thought that was possible. Because one of the biggest things, and here's the important reason why I want to touch on that. I see authors all the time that basically wrote a book. Great, fantastic, congratulations, you got a book. There it is. That's your baby. But then they just go out there and they say, buy my book. And that's it. Buy my book. There's no context. There's no additional value to it other than buy my book. But if you can come up with the lessons within the book, the lessons learned, the value within the book, why should somebody buy your book? Well, here's the reason why you should buy your book. And that becomes the content. You know what I'm saying? I truly believe that can become the content, and how you position your social media, how you position your messaging, how you position your graphics, and you can use AI for some of that too. And I think that it's one of those things to where if you combine all of those to include the best of you, making it personal, I really believe that you can connect with people in a more meaningful way that will make them want to buy their book. And that's for fiction authors. Now for nonfiction, that pretty much kind of takes care of itself, because as nonfiction authors, they got a message to begin with anyway. They've got frameworks, they've got all these different things. It's a lot easier to work with nonfiction authors than it is fiction authors, but I do have frameworks, I do have systems that will help fiction authors get their books out there, make more sales, create content in a meaningful way that can get out there. Nonfiction authors, really, it's what is your point? What is the message? What is the value that you deliver? What are your systems? What are your frameworks? And I think that it comes down to asking those essential questions to understand what it is that they have in the form of value. Deliver that value, let them speak that, let them present that, let them show that. And then once again, my knowledge, skills, and experience comes in to bridge the gap with the things that I don't see that are opportunities for them to present in content or whatever the case may be, that will help them once again increase their sales, increase their visibility, increase their messaging, or create their messaging in such a way that it empowers others. So a little bit to unpack with that. I think that we there's other things that we could dive into with on both of those spectrums, but hopefully that's helpful for somebody.
I think it is. And what I really liked about what you said there, Terry, is that I think a lot of people, they think they're promoting to some degree, but what they're actually doing is announcing something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's very little real true value marketing that's going on, meaning they're not really explaining the benefits, the value add, the thing that's going to make that change. Yeah. They're just announcing that it's there. So I think what you're talking about there is very, very helpful. So thank you for sharing that.
This is probably the number one thing that I think that gets a lot of authors kind of stumped, if you will. And that's the three most important things that you must focus on in order to make book sales. And I see a lot of authors getting it right and a lot of authors getting it wrong. And, whether your book's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, you have a physical copy of the book, you're at a book signing, whatever the case may be, there's three elements that I truly believe makes for a strong presentation of your book. Number one is the cover. We're visual. We want to look at the cover. How many times have you just perused past all these thousands of covers at a bookshelf and that one cover grabs your attention? Yet I see indie authors making a huge mistake of copy and paste, clip art, all these different covers that don't make sense, and this, that, and the other. Look, you don't necessarily need a professional book cover designer. Canva can solve that problem for you real easily. But I see number one, the cover. Number two, the book description. I literally seen one line, like a little blurb, a little tagline in a book description, and you might as well have just said, buy my book. But yet there's no context there. There's no context. Why should somebody buy your book? The cover grabs the attention. The description kind of tells the story on why, why they should buy your book. Now, for fiction and nonfiction, it's two completely different things. And I have frameworks for that I teach within one of my courses here on what to look for from a fiction and a nonfiction standpoint. But the idea is that after the cover has grabbed their attention, that description really kind of takes them a little bit further down the rabbit hole of why should I buy that book? Now, here's where it gets awesome. And that's the look inside section. On Amazon, they make it super easy for you to make an even further purchasing decision, because that look inside section is that third element that a potential reader or potential buyer will look into. And if your look inside section is literally the table of contents, I cannot make a purchasing decision based off of a table of contents. I want to see content. I want to see, certain things. I don't want to see the legal jargon of who created my book cover. Here's my publisher. Here's, a couple of things. Now, your link is important, your website. How can people connect with you? And I do that within my books intentionally. I want people to connect with me. I want them to know what my book is about. I want them to be able to see the first, however much percentage of the book, 10%, 15%, the first chapter, whatever the case may be. I truly believe you get the cover, the description, and the look inside section right, you will increase your sales.
Yeah, like that, Terry. And it made me think as you were talking, I suppose it applies also to video, because I was thinking of people with Netflix accounts, for example. Netflix are very smart, because what they do is they change the thumbnails to a particular series or film that you have not yet watched. It's the same thing you've been scrolling past for ages. It's very similar to what you're describing in a bookstore. You're just walking past the bland covers, and then something will catch your eye. And it's the same on video. The thumbnail, like Mr. Beast, for example, is rumored to have spent, $150,000 or more just on a thumbnail to be designed. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but that visual element of it makes you go back, whether it's Netflix, makes you go back and maybe read a bit of blurb, maybe watch the trailer. That thing on a dust jacket makes you go, well, let me just have a quick look here. Maybe this is interesting. So I think that's really great points. Thank you for adding that. Look, I do want to talk about community, and I just want to squeeze that in. And the reason why I think it's an important topic with yourself, Terry, is because you've got a lot of people on these different shows that you've got, the 4 podcasts that we're talking about earlier. Then you've got all the work you're doing with entrepreneurs and authors and, content creators. So your network must just continually build. And I'm interested in maybe looking at it from your side, looking out. How do you go about creating community? How do you communicate with that community? How does community building work in the world of Terry Thompson?
Yeah, I'm going to share probably one of the dumbest frameworks that you've ever heard. Trust me when I tell you this. It's so silly, you will never forget it. When we were all growing up in school, you were taught A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. It's one of the most memorable things that I guarantee you that every person throughout their entire life has never forgotten. So that's the framework that I want to teach you, A, E, I, O, U. So A stands for access. You want to gain access. You want to gain influencer access, and you want to gain potential customer or client access. That's 2 different ways in which you can gain access. And the number one way to do that is through social media and then email. The idea is to capture people on your email list. That's access. In a nutshell, that's access. You're gaining access to people that you want to connect with. Number 2 is engagement. That's E. E is engagement. What you want to do is you want to engage in a meaningful way that makes what it is that you're presenting attractable. Like when you outreach to me, you had access to me through Twitter. We engaged in a meaningful way. And guess what? Here we are. We're right here live on the show right here. And I love it. That's A and E, access and engagement. I see so much lack of engagement that's out there. It's unbelievable, other than buy my stuff. If you're going to engage that says basically just buy my stuff, you're not going to make any sales. You're not going to build community. You're not going to do those things. So here's where it really starts to get interesting. That's I. I is increase. You're going to increase people's want, their need, their desire, their curiosity. Who is this guy? I don't know who this guy is. What does he have to offer? You're going to increase people's want, need, and desire. You do that through content, being yourself, sharing yourself, bringing the energy. You know, like I said within earlier, the 5 rights, attitude. Attitude is everything. So now you see that I'm pumping up the energy just a little bit. It's that inflection. It's the rise and fall and the pitch and tone of my voice that will take people on a journey that will allow them to increase their want, need, desires. Like, ooh, I got to connect with this guy. So you see how I got excited right there? Get excited about your stuff. That's how you're going to increase so many things, to include the next step, which is, and that's offers or opportunities. You see, here's what I see. I see entrepreneurs, marketers will screw up everything. I totally agree with that. Marketers will screw up everything, but they present with the offer when they don't realize that they're losing opportunities. Here's how that works. Offer, opportunity. I literally believe that there is a difference between offer and opportunity. You see, you presented me with an opportunity. It wasn't an offer, it was an opportunity. And I took you up on that opportunity because I thought that it was a great opportunity. So many entrepreneurs lead with the offer instead of AEI. Remember, there's 3 steps before you get to the offer or opportunity. Yet I see entrepreneurs and authors lead with offer. And that's the reason why they're not making sales. Now, you is unite. We need to unite people in a community of people, not like-minded people, purpose-driven people, because you got to have a yin and a yang within your community. I want to learn from you just like I want you to learn from me. So as we're uniting, as we're building that community full of people that bring knowledge, skills, experience, and I always say that because look, we all have knowledge, we all have skills, but the number one thing that separates each and every one of us is our experience. I don't have your experience. You don't have my experience. And when we build a community that allows everybody's experiences to shine, man, we grow so much to get better and together as a community. And that right there is AEIOU. Hold on, we forgot why. Now, why? Because you know what? It is important to connect with people. Remember, I said in the beginning, people connect with people. And when you understand why you're doing something, man, you connect with things on a whole much deeper level when you know your why. It's like the classic saying within leadership, know your why. Entrepreneurship, know your why. When you know why you're doing something, the how, the who, the what, the how doesn't matter. But why are you doing something? So that's AEIOUY in a nutshell.
Love it, Terry. Love it. Fantastic. Thanks for sharing. Now, I'm almost hesitant to ask you the next question because people listening or watching to this are already scratching their head going, how does this guy do all this stuff? But your roadmap, your own sense of planning, how do you make change happen in your world? And what does the next year look like for you?
So I truly believe that a lot of people out there do not have clarity within their lives. If you want to achieve any degree of success, you must have clarity. I call it the bottom line up front. So I created the bottom line up front planner, and that helps me identify the number one thing, the most important thing that I can take action on every single day. I'll share a quick story with you. Years ago, I used to have these massive to-do lists. And they was just crazy, a sheet filled with 25 things to do. And then that one sheet turned into 2 sheets, turned into 3 sheets. Next thing you know, I got 150 things that I have to do, and I'm overwhelmed and don't know how to take action on any of it. I needed to get to the bottom line of that. And I was like, whoa, wait a second, there's something right there. Let me get to the bottom line up front on the most important thing that I can do. You see, I have a military background. I served in the military for 24 years. And whenever you send correspondence to any military leader, you lead with the bluff, the bottom line up front. This is the bottom line up front. That most important thing you want that senior leader to focus on and make a decision on and take an action on. And that for me is the bottom line up front. So I lead with the bottom line up front. Then I have particular questions that I want to ask myself. What's important? Who do I need to connect with? Why do I need to connect with? What resources do I have? And then throughout the day, I'm taking action. I'm pausing through the middle of the day to understand, okay, am I still on target? Am I still on task? Do I need to connect with more people? Do I need more resources? You see, clarity. And this system right here that I call the bottom line up front helps me gain clarity every single day. Here's where it really gets exciting, and that's the end of the day. And I truly believe that your next day begins by the end of the previous day. You highlight what your bottom line up front is for the next day. You already know what it is. You're crystal clear before you even put your head down on that pillow. You already know exactly what you're going to do the very next day, because you see, so many people are waking up every single day throwing darts at a dartboard, throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks. At the end of the day, they're only left with the mess to clean up, and they've achieved absolutely nothing. So if you want to achieve success, you absolutely 100% must have a bottom line up front. Take action throughout the day. And now here's really the awesome part. That's the end of the day. Do what I call an after action review. After action review looks like this right here. You pull out a piece of paper, or you have the bottom line up front planner, and you can do the same thing right there. And that's what went right at a top piece of paper, or let me rephrase that. At the top of the piece of paper is what was supposed to happen. Just under that, what did happen, because oftentimes what was supposed to happen and what did happen are two completely different things. And you want to gain clarity on where those failures happened when they happen. There's a line down the middle of the paper. On the left-hand side, what went right? These are the things that went right throughout the day, because oftentimes people go throughout their day and never really clearly identify what went right. Those things that went right becomes your tips, your tools, your techniques, your resources. Those things that you can put within your toolkit that you can continue taking action on because you know they work. They went right. On the right-hand side of the paper, you're going to write down what needs improvement. What needs improvement? Because those are the things that you still have a little bit of work to do. You can modify, tweak, change those things that need improvement, continue taking action, and repeat that process all the way until you have all the tips, tools, techniques, and resources in your toolkit. And that right there is a framework for achieving success. I call it the bottom line up front.
Well, thank you for sharing the bottom line up front. I think there's some sage advice in there, Terry. And you've shared some great advice here. And before we run out of time, I want to squeeze in a couple of quick questions. One is that, look, before we close out, is there anything that I haven't touched on or anything that you want to double down on that you'd like to share with our worldwide audience today? And secondly, and importantly, if people want to find out more about Terry Thompson and all these great assets and content that we've been speaking about, where would you like to point people to?
All right, so number one is the future is bright. You know, there's so much opportunity right now for authors and indie authors to make a difference within this world. You don't have to be formally published. You know, Amazon makes it easy for indie authors to really get content out there. But here's one of the biggest things that I teach my students. I teach my students, I don't want to be an Amazon bestselling author. I don't want to be a New York Times bestselling author. I don't want to be a USA Today bestselling author. I want to be a Terry Wade Thompson bestselling author. I want you to believe within yourself and take ownership of what it is that you have within your hands. And what you have within your hands is not just a book, it's a difference. And I want you to make a difference within this world with the content that you put out there, not only in a book, but in audio, in video. There's so many platforms. The great Seth Godin said this right here: different people consume different things differently. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but in his book, This is Marketing, he literally said it all right there. And I have twisted that statement about 500 different ways from Sunday when it comes to trying to teach people. Look, different people do different things differently, consume different things differently, write different things differently. Be you, be unique, be yourself, be confident, and be courageous to get whatever it is that you have within your heart and your soul out there within the world. Because think about it like this: you would 100% be selfish if you didn't get it out there in the world. Your content, your book, your story, your belief, your magic, you belong out there within the world. And if you hold all of that back, wow, just think about it. You could have made a difference within somebody's life, whether it's a fiction book, a nonfiction book. It doesn't matter the labels. You have that story, you have that message, you have that voice within you that literally can be consumed in written format, audio format, visual format. Remember, we all learn different things differently. And if you put that out there in a way that connects with the right person at the right time when they need it most, you could change somebody's life. Now, the best way to connect with me is over on my website, terrywadethompson.com. If you head on over to terrywadethompson.com, all of my social media is right there. You can connect with me on all of my social media. All of my programs, all my books, everything is right there. And I have a special gift for everybody that is listening or watching to this show right here. If you check out on the content creator community, right now, I have a special going on where if you use the coupon code SAVE50 at checkout, you will save $50 at checkout. So that normally goes for $97. For all of your listeners right here, if you use the coupon code SAVE50, you can get access to the content creator community and me for only $47.
Well, that brings us nicely to the end of this episode. Thank you so much indeed for providing that to people who are watching or listening to this episode around the world. Thank you to Terry Wade Thompson. Make sure you go over to terrywadethompson.com, check out his site, check out all the content that Terry's involved in and the great work that he's doing. Make sure that you follow, like, subscribe, do everything I need you to do to help support this show and, of course, Terry's 4 shows. And I hope that you'll join me back here for some more discussions with creatives and leaders and thinkers. But thank you, Terry. It's been wonderful to talk to you again today.
Awesome, Simon. Thank you so much for the opportunity.